You won't believe how a single moment in your life can whisper a warning so soft you almost miss it, yet loud enough that your heart begins to race before your mind understands why. And as you're here listening to me right now, I want you to feel every tremor I felt, because what happened to me wasn't just betrayal, it was a lesson carved into my bones. Before I begin, tell me in the comments, where are you joining us from, and what time is it right now? Because depending on the hour, what I'm about to confess might keep you awake far longer than you expect. My name is Emily, I'm 23, and until a few weeks ago, I thought I was living the kind of love story girls my age dream about. The kind where your heartbeat syncs with someone else's, where their touch electrifies you, where you feel like you're wrapped in a forever kind of warmth. And for me, that warmth had a name, Mark. My husband. My almost perfect soulmate. My greatest weakness. And the man who would eventually push me to the edge of revenge I didn't know I was capable of. From the first moment I met him, something in my chest leaned toward him without permission. His voice had that calm, masculine depth that made you want to lean closer just to feel it vibrate in your bones. His eyes tracked every inch of me like he was memorizing something precious. Somewhere inside, I already trusted him more than I trusted myself. And maybe that blind trust is where everything truly began to fall apart. You know how people say that when love burns too brightly, it often hides its own shadows? I didn't see any shadows. Not at first. Not even when Mark started holding me just a little too tightly, kissing me with a hunger that felt like possession instead of affection, or watching me with that strange intensity he swore was just love. His fingers always lingered a little too long on my wrist, his touch always a little too heated, his breath sometimes warm enough against my neck to send me spiraling into a breathless daze. I ignored every warning sign because love makes you foolish in the most beautiful and dangerous ways. But looking back now, I can see the shift. I can pinpoint the exact moment when Mark's love turned from comforting to suffocating. It began on a Thursday afternoon, the kind where the world feels too quiet, too still, like it's holding its breath for something it knows you're not ready for. I had just come home from running errands, and Mark was already in the kitchen, leaning casually against the counter with 2 cups of tea. The sweet scent hit me immediately, chamomile with honey, my favorite, the one he made only on evenings when he wanted to hold me a little closer or whisper things that made my skin flush. His smile was warm, almost boyish, like the man I first fell for. But his eyes. God, if I had paid more attention to his eyes, maybe none of this would have happened. They were too calm. Too prepared. He handed me the cup, his fingers brushing mine, slow and intentional. Rough day, baby? You look tired, he murmured, stepping close enough that I felt the heat of his chest through my shirt. His lips grazed my temple, soft, loving, almost protective. Almost. Something in the back of my throat tightened for a reason I couldn't explain. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was imagining things. But that tea. I had known Mark for 3 years. I had tasted that tea 100 times. This one smelled the same, but felt wrong. As if beneath the honey and chamomile, there was something bitter, something hiding behind the sweetness. I took the cup anyway. Why? Because you don't suspect poison in a home filled with I love yous. You don't suspect betrayal in arms that held you through nightmares. You don't assume danger when the danger is the same man who once kissed your tears off your cheeks like they mattered more than oxygen. Mark watched me too carefully as I brought the tea to my lips. I felt his stare prick against my skin like needles. That was when the first whisper of fear crawled up my spine. His voice broke the silence. Drink all of it. It'll help you relax. Relax. Such an innocent word. Such a frightening tone. I took a sip, just enough to let the taste touch my tongue, and instantly knew something was wrong. The chamomile wasn't strong enough to hide the extra bitterness. A heaviness settled in the back of my throat. My heartbeat stuttered. But I didn't show it. In that split second, my mind raced through possibilities I didn't want to believe. Was he trying to drug me? Why? What reason could he have? What did he want from me unconscious? My breath caught, but I forced a smile, a soft, trusting, loving smile. The kind I knew he wanted to see. That's perfect, I whispered, pretending to take another sip before lowering the cup. Mark stepped closer, slipping an arm around my waist, pulling me flush against him. His body was warm, his touch firm, his breath slow and steady as he brushed his lips against the corner of my mouth. A shiver ran through me, not from pleasure this time, but from fear disguised as desire. You should finish it, he murmured, his thumb stroking my hip. I want you to rest tonight. Something in his voice was almost eager. I lifted the cup again, pretending to drink, letting the liquid slide just enough between my lips for him to believe, then I swallowed nothing. My heart pounded so violently I thought he could hear it. But his gaze stayed glued to my throat, watching for the swallow, watching too closely. He didn't notice the tiny drops I let fall onto my shirt when he turned to grab his phone, too focused on whatever he was planning next. When he returned, his smile was too wide. Too calm. Feeling tired yet? I nodded weakly, pretending to sway. His eyes gleamed, a glint so subtle, so quick, but sharp enough to send a cold blade straight into my spine. He guided me to the bedroom, his hand on the small of my back, gentle but firm, almost possessive. The lights were dim. The air felt heavy. The room had never looked more like a trap. I let my body go slack on the bed, pretending my limbs were losing strength, letting my eyes droop just enough to seem drugged. He stood over me, studying me with a hunger I had never seen before. Not the romantic kind. Not the loving kind. Something darker. Something that made my breath freeze in my lungs. And then, as my breathing slowed and my eyes closed, Mark whispered something under his breath, too soft for me to understand, and the mattress dipped as he leaned closer. I felt his fingers brush my hair away from my face, then trail down my neck, slow, deliberate, almost savoring the moment. And in that terrifying stillness, when I forced myself to lie perfectly motionless, perfectly helpless, perfectly silent. That was when Mark did something that shattered everything I thought I knew about him, and everything I believed about love. What he did next didn't just shake me, it changed the direction of my entire life. And it was only the beginning. You won't believe how hard it is to keep your breathing steady when the person you love is leaning over you with intentions you can't understand, and don't want to understand. Because the moment Mark thought I was asleep, completely under the spell of the sleeping pills he slipped into my tea, something inside him changed. It was like a mask sliding off slowly, revealing a man whose darkness had been hiding right in front of me for months. I felt his weight shift on the mattress as he leaned closer, and every muscle in my body screamed at me to run, to wake up, to fight, but I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I knew exactly what he was planning. My entire future depended on this moment, so I forced myself to stay limp, fake unconsciousness, and let the fear burn quietly under my skin. His breath brushed against my cheek, warm and disturbingly calm. "Good girl," he whispered. A shiver shot through me, not from the warmth, but from the way his voice sounded without the softness he always used around me. This one was darker, hungrier, like he was talking to property, not a wife. I could feel his fingers tighten slightly in my hair, as if he was testing how deeply asleep I was. His thumb brushed my bottom lip, slowly, deliberately, and I had to fight the instinct to jerk away. My body tensed internally, but I kept my face perfectly still. Then he did something that sent ice flooding through my veins. He laughed softly. A low, breathy chuckle. Like he was pleased. Like this moment, me helpless beneath him, was exactly what he'd been waiting for. You have no idea, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, how much easier this is when you don't fight. Easier. Easier for what? His hand slid down my neck, over my collarbone, and stopped just above my chest. Not touching, just hovering. His breath hitched faintly, almost in anticipation. I could feel his body leaning closer, radiating heat, his presence overwhelming in the dark room. This wasn't love. This wasn't affection. This was a man revealing the hunger he kept chained when I was awake. Then he did something even worse. Something that confirmed every nightmare I didn't know I had. He reached under the pillow, his pillow, and pulled out his phone. For a split second, curiosity crept into me, but what he did next snatched that curiosity away and replaced it with terror. He opened the camera. Not the front one, the back one. Then he angled it toward me, letting the faint screen light glow across my face. He stared at the image on the screen like he was admiring his own work. Like seeing me sprawled out, unconscious, was some twisted version of beauty for him. And then he hit record. My heart nearly stopped. I heard the soft beep of the camera beginning to film, and I prayed, begged, that my breathing didn't change. My pulse throbbed so loudly in my ears I thought the sound might give me away. He filmed me from every angle. My face. My still body. My limp arms. My parted lips, the ones he brushed earlier. He whispered to himself as he recorded, "This is perfect. No more surprises from you, no more refusals." Refusals? To what? What had he been planning that he thought I'd say no to? I had to keep the panic locked behind my closed eyelids. Because if I reacted too early, I'd ruin everything, every chance of learning what he was really trying to do. Every chance of surviving this without him finding out I knew the truth. He lowered the phone, breathing heavier now, as if the recording had awakened something inside him. Then, incredibly, horrifyingly, he leaned down and pressed his lips against my ear. "You should have listened to me, Emily," he whispered. "We could have kept everything secret. But now, you've forced my hand." Forced his hand? What secret? What was he talking about? And then it hit me, something he once said weeks ago, something I brushed off because love makes you stupid. "You don't need to worry about our money, baby. I'll handle everything. You just trust me." At the time, it felt protective. Now, it felt like a warning disguised as affection. Without warning, he stood up and walked toward the closet. I kept my eyes closed but moved them just enough under my lids to watch through a tiny slit. He reached into his jacket pocket, the one he always kept locked in the closet, and pulled something out. A small folder. A thick one. The kind that holds contracts. Papers. Documents that could ruin or reshape a life. He placed it gently on the bed beside my sleeping body. Then he opened it, letting the pages spread across my pillow. I couldn't read the text from the angle I had, but I caught glimpses, signatures, bank names, account numbers, legal terms. My legal name. My signature. But I hadn't signed anything. My blood went cold. He turned to me again and whispered, "Everything will make sense when you wake up tomorrow. You'll sign the rest without questioning." That's the beauty of drugs, they make you forget the parts you wouldn't agree to. And that was when I understood. He wasn't just trying to knock me out. He was trying to control me. Manipulate me. Use me for something he knew I wouldn't allow. Money. Property. Assets. Freedom. Something valuable enough that he needed me unconscious to set the trap. Before I could process the terror, he moved closer again, too close, and brushed a strand of hair from my face with a gentle touch that felt nauseating now. You always make things complicated, he murmured. But tonight, you were perfect. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I didn't move. Then he did something I never expected, something that made my revenge take root right in that moment. He leaned down, pressed a slow, possessive kiss to my forehead, and whispered, "When this is over, you'll thank me." No, I wouldn't. I would destroy him long before that moment ever came. Mark stood up, grabbed his phone, turned off the recording, and placed it carefully inside his jacket. Then he went to the bathroom, humming as if nothing in the world was wrong. But while he was gone, I opened my eyes. My revenge was born in that moment, in that quiet, breathless, terrifying silence. And what I did next marked the beginning of the end for Mark. But you're not ready for that yet. Because what I saw when he came back into the room, what he whispered next, what he tried to do while he thought I was unconscious, that was the moment everything snapped. You won't understand how terrifying it feels to lie perfectly still when every instinct in your body screams at you to run. Because as I opened my eyes for that single heartbeat while Mark was in the bathroom, I realized something dangerous. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just manipulation. This was a man preparing to take away everything that made me me. And the moment he returned, humming as if the world was nothing but a quiet lullaby, I had to snap my eyes shut again and sink back into the role of the helpless, drugged wife. When the bathroom door opened, his footsteps were soft, too soft, like he didn't want to disturb his own trap. I could hear the faint rustle of fabric, the quiet exhale he always made after splashing cold water on his face. Then the mattress dipped beside me again, and the warmth of his body radiated over my still frame. He watched me. For a long, unsettling minute, he just watched. I could feel his gaze like fingers on my skin. It lingered on my face, drifted down my neck, paused on the outline of my body beneath the blankets. His breathing grew just a little heavier, a little warmer, sliding across my cheek like he was savoring the moment. "Beautiful," he murmured. And his voice didn't sound like a husband admiring his wife. It sounded like a man admiring something he owned, something he could manipulate without consequence. I kept my breathing slow and heavy, letting my chest rise and fall in the steady rhythm of a sedated body. Inside, though, my thoughts raced like wildfire. I replayed every sign I ignored, every red flag I excused, every moment I convinced myself he was just protective, not controlling. If only I had listened to the little voice inside me back then. His hand slid down my arm slowly, too slowly, lingering in a way that made my skin crawl. The touch was soft, feather-light, almost tender, but the intent behind it made my stomach twist. He brushed his fingers over my wrist, tracing the thin veins there, whispering to himself, "You never make this easy for me." Easy, for what? What exactly did he plan to take from me? Then he did something that made every piece of my forced stillness threaten to shatter. He pulled the folder closer, the one filled with forged signatures and documents I never agreed to, and carefully slid a few fresh pages out. Papers I hadn't seen. Papers he intended to make me sign once I was too groggy to fight. I could hear him flipping through them slowly, humming that same soft tune, the one he used to sing against my neck when he held me too close. It made my skin burn now, not with heat, but with disgust. "You're going to make this so easy in the morning," he whispered. "You always do." Always? How many times had he done this? How many times had he drugged me lightly, subtly, just enough for me to forget details? A cold, violent realization slammed into me. There were nights, just a few, where I woke up groggy, confused, disoriented, certain I fell asleep too fast. Times where my dreams felt too vivid, too distorted. Times where I thought the exhaustion was just stress, not chemically induced. My pulse throbbed so loudly in my ears I feared he would hear it. But still, I did not move. His hand drifted toward my face again, tracing the curve of my jaw. His thumb brushed my lips, slow and possessive, as if he was checking if I'd react. I didn't. You trust so easily, Emily, he murmured. It's almost disappointing. Something inside me snapped then, a thin thread of innocence tearing apart forever. He leaned down again, his breath warming my cheek, his lips grazing my ear. Tomorrow, everything changes. You'll sign the rest. You won't even realize what you agreed to. And by the time you understand, a soft, pleased sigh left him. It'll be too late. Too late. For what? My money? My identity? My freedom? Maybe all of them. He moved away suddenly, getting off the bed. His footsteps traveled toward the dresser, where I heard the metallic click of a lock opening. A drawer, one he never let me touch. Then came the unmistakable sound of paper, plastic, and something heavier being shifted around. Curiosity burned, but fear kept my body frozen. He returned to the bed holding something. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. A soft, thin tearing noise. Paper? Tape? No. The sound was sharper. The sound of packaging. Then a cold object brushed my cheek. Something metallic. Smooth. Thin. He ran it along my jawline with the deliberate slowness of a man testing how deeply unconscious I was. My skin prickled beneath the cold edge. A blade. Not a large one, more like a pocket knife or a letter opener, but sharp enough that the threat was real. Just in case you wake up before you're supposed to, he whispered, sliding the cold metal down my neck, stopping right where my pulse beat beneath my skin. I need you calm tomorrow. Cooperative. Quiet. Quiet. I had never feared a word more. He traced the blade across my collarbone before pulling it away. I heard him exhale softly, like touching me with danger excited him. And that terrified me more than anything else so far. Mark leaned closer again and whispered, "You don't understand how much I need this." Need what? Before I could search for answers, he stood up and walked toward the door. The soft click echoed through the room as he locked it from the outside. And then he left. He left me alone in the room, believing I was drugged and helpless, locked inside with forged documents scattered across the pillow and a cold blade's memory burning into my skin. The moment his footsteps faded down the hall, I opened my eyes fully for the second time. And this time, I didn't just wake up. I transformed. Because now I understood the truth. Mark didn't just want something from me. He wanted to erase me. Absorb my identity. Claim everything that was mine. All while convincing me it was for my own good. And that was the night I made a decision I didn't know I was capable of making. A decision that would flip every one of his plans upside down. A decision that would turn me into the kind of woman no man should ever try to betray. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to end him. Piece by piece. But before revenge comes clarity, and in part 2b, you'll find out exactly what I discovered when I finally got up from that bed and uncovered the truth he'd been hiding for months. Mark kept pacing the kitchen, running his hands through his hair, muttering under his breath like he was arguing with ghosts I couldn't see. The overhead light flickered, and for a moment, the whole room felt like the inside of a storm, charged, unstable, dangerous. And then he turned on me. Not physically. Worse. Emotionally. Emily, he said, planting his palms on the counter and leaning toward me, you have no idea how hard I've been trying to fix things. But you, he exhaled sharply. You just keep drifting away. My chest tightened. If only he knew why I drifted. If only he knew what I saw last night when I pretended to sleep. But I stayed still. Controlled. What exactly do you think I'm drifting from? I asked softly, lowering my voice so he leaned closer without even realizing it. His jaw clenched. His eyes flinched. Guilt flickered across his expression like a spark catching dry wood. He stepped toward me again, close enough that I felt the heat of his body. Close enough that I could smell the faint trace of his cologne, the one he used to wear only for special nights, the one I now knew wasn't for me anymore. But he stood there anyway, pretending. Trying to play the part. From us, he said quietly. From what we used to be. I tilted my head slightly, watching every twitch in his face. How would you know what we used to be, Mark? I whispered, if you don't even look at me anymore? He froze. It was subtle, half a second, maybe less, but it was enough. He swallowed hard. His fingers curled against the counter. He was terrified. Not of me, but of what I might know. Emily, he murmured, his voice softening into that tone he always used when he wanted something. He reached out, fingers brushing my arm lightly. And the moment he touched me, something inside me twisted, half heartbreak, half fury. His touch used to feel safe, warm, grounding. Now it felt like a lie wearing skin. I stepped back slowly, letting his hand fall. And he panicked. Hey, don't do that. He moved toward me, trying to force softness into his voice. We can fix this. I know I've messed up a little. I know I've been distant. But just talk to me. Talk. He wanted me to talk. He had no idea how much I'd seen. No idea that his little mistakes were bigger than he could ever imagine. I let my eyes soften, pretending to consider his plea. That tiny flicker of hope in his expression was almost pathetic. Fine, I said gently. Let's talk tonight. His relief was instant. Visible. Tonight? He asked, almost breathless. Yeah, okay. Tonight. Anything you want. He meant it. He really thought he was in control. But tonight was exactly what I needed. Tonight was when I would finally trap him. He didn't know I had his messages. He didn't know I'd taken photos of what he did while I slept. He didn't know I'd recorded the whispered phone call he made in the hallway afterward. Tonight, I repeated, letting the word linger between us, sweet, promising, dangerous. Mark smiled then, a soft, relieved smile that twisted something in my stomach because for a brief second, I saw the man I married. The man I used to love. But that man was gone. And the one standing in front of me? He deserved everything coming to him. As he turned away to grab his keys, he didn't see the way my expression changed. He didn't see the fire he created. He didn't see the revenge he awakened. But he would. Tonight. The hours leading up to the evening felt like walking through the quiet before a hurricane, too still, too calm, the kind of silence that warns you something violent is waiting beneath it. I kept replaying last night in my mind. The sleeping pills. Mark's whispering voice. The shadow moving in our bedroom while I pretended my body was heavy and lifeless. The woman's giggle, soft, breathy, too close. I had to force myself not to shudder. If Mark had looked even once at my face. If he had noticed the way my eyelashes trembled when I heard him unzip his pants. If he had caught the faint rise in my breathing. He would have known I wasn't asleep. But he didn't. He trusted the drugs more than he trusted me. And that was going to destroy him. I spent the afternoon preparing everything I needed. The phone recordings. The messages. The time-stamped video footage from the hidden camera he still didn't know existed. The audio where he whispered, "She's knocked out. Come in quietly." I'd listened to it 3 times. Each time, it cut deeper until the pain hardened into ice. But tonight wasn't about pain. Tonight was about power. At exactly 6:47 p.m., Mark texted me. "Mark, hey, I'm on my way home. Picked up dinner. Thought we could just relax and talk. I really want this night to go well." I reread the message slowly. Relax? Talk? Did he really think a takeout meal could wash away betrayal? But I smiled. Perfect. The nicer he acted, the harder the truth would crush him. When the door finally opened, he stepped inside carrying food and wearing the soft blue shirt I once told him he looked good in. He was trying. Trying so hard it almost would have been sweet. If I didn't already know what he had done. "Hey," he said, gently, almost shyly. "You look beautiful." I had thrown on a simple dress, nothing dramatic, nothing seductive, just quiet elegance. It made him soften immediately. Made him hope. Good. "Thanks," I said, keeping my voice steady, warm. I wanted tonight to feel honest. His shoulders loosened. He smiled again, a small, relieved smile. "Yeah," he said. "Honesty would be good for both of us. For both of us." That part almost made me laugh. He set the food down, then stepped closer, close enough that his chest brushed mine lightly. His fingers grazed my waist, slow and deliberate, as if he was testing whether he still had the right to touch me. The heat of his hand lingered even after I stepped back. "Let's sit," I said softly. "There's a lot we need to talk about." He nodded, nervous and earnest. We sat across from each other, the low light casting soft shadows across his face. He looked almost boyish, vulnerable. He probably thought I still saw him as the man I married. The man I trusted. But the man in front of me wasn't Mark. Not my Mark. He was someone else entirely. Someone dangerous. Someone I had to dismantle carefully. "So," he began, picking at the edge of his napkin, "you said earlier we should talk tonight. I want to hear what you're feeling." He had no idea he was about to hear something far worse. I inhaled slowly, then locked my eyes onto his. "Mark," I whispered, letting tension drip through every word, "I know." He froze. His breath hitched. His fingers went still. "'Kay, know what?" he stammered, pretending badly, trying to keep his voice calm. I tilted my head, watching him unravel. "I know what you put in my tea," I said quietly. The color drained from his face. "And I know," I continued, leaning forward just slightly, "what you did after you thought I was asleep." Mark swallowed hard, once, then again, his pulse visibly pounding at his neck. He didn't breathe. He didn't blink. He just stared at me. A trapped man trying to pretend he wasn't caught. "Emily," he whispered, voice cracking, "please, tell me you're not saying what I think you're saying." Oh, I was. And he was about to hear every detail. The moment I didn't break eye contact, Mark's entire body shifted, his chest rising faster, his hands trembling slightly, his pupils shrinking like he'd been punched by the truth itself. I didn't blink. I wanted him to feel trapped. I wanted him to feel exactly what I felt when I lay in that bed pretending to be unconscious while he moved like a stranger in the dark. he finally inhaled, shaky and uneven. "Emily," he whispered, his voice no longer confident, no longer charming, just terrified. "You're misunderstanding. I would never." "Mark," I cut in softly, the softness that scares a man more than shouting ever could. "Stop lying. You're already sinking. Don't dig deeper." He opened his mouth again, but the words died on his tongue. "Good." I stood up slowly and walked around the table, letting every step echo with purpose. His eyes followed me like prey following the movement of a predator. When I reached his side, I leaned down, my lips brushing close enough to his ear that I could feel the way he tensed. "I heard you," I whispered. His breath hitched. "I heard everything. You said she should come in quietly. You said I was knocked out. You said you wanted." "Stop," he choked, gripping the edge of the chair as if the truth itself was stabbing him. But I wasn't done. I walked around him, not rushing, not slowing, just circling like the truth itself was orbiting his body. He didn't dare move. Not even an inch. "Do you want to know the worst part?" I said, steady, calm, deadly. I wasn't even angry at first. I was scared. Because I didn't understand why my husband, the man who claimed he loved me, would drug me. His jaw clenched. His eyes glossed. He looked like he wanted to disappear. But I leaned in again, letting my voice sink into him like poison. And then I heard her voice. Mark's shoulders collapsed. He buried his face in his hands for a second, shaking his head. "Emily, please," he begged. "It wasn't what you think. I swear to God, I swear." I reached down and lifted his chin with one finger, making him look at me. "It was exactly what I think," I said. "Because I saw it too." His eyes widened instantly. "You saw?" he whispered, horrified. "Yes," I said simply. "You really should check your own house better before sneaking around in it. I had a camera set up weeks ago. Hidden. Silent. Perfect." He went white. Then whiter. Then somehow even whiter. For a moment, he looked like the world had stopped spinning and left him hanging in the cold. "You recorded me," he said, his voice soft, shattered, disbelieving. "No," I corrected, my tone razor-sharp. "You recorded yourself." I just pressed play. His lips parted, but no sound came out. He looked broken. But I wasn't finished, not even close. I stepped back, watching him collapse into himself. For a moment, he looked like he might faint. But then he lifted his head, and something changed. A flicker of anger. A spark of defiance. The predator inside him peeking through the cracks of his fear. I saw it. I felt it. And he let out a low, shaky breath. "So what now?" he whispered, voice trembling but edged with something darker. "What are you going to do with it?" There it was. The real Mark. The man behind the charm. The man behind the lies. The man who didn't fear losing me, only losing control. I crossed my arms, watching him like he was a puzzle I'd finally solved. "What do you think I'm going to do?" I asked quietly. His throat worked. His fingers dug into his knees. "You're going to destroy me," he whispered. I let the silence answer for me. His voice broke. "Emily, I messed up. I know I messed up. But you have to believe me, I still love you." I let out a breath, half disbelief, half pity. Love? I said, shaking my head slowly. Real love doesn't taste like sleeping pills. Real love doesn't sneak around with another woman in the bedroom we share. Real love doesn't whisper instructions over my unconscious body. He shut his eyes. He looked like he was breaking from the inside out. But then, a tear slipped down his cheek. A single tear. And for a moment, just a moment, I felt something twist inside my chest. Something human. Something fragile. Something that remembered the version of him who once held me like I was the only thing keeping him alive. He opened his eyes again, desperate, hollow, pleading. "Emily, please," he whispered. "I'm begging you. Don't leave me." My heart beat once. Then twice. Then steadied. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. Instead, I leaned down, placed my lips dangerously close to his, and whispered into the space between us. "I'm not leaving you." For a split second, hope flickered in his face. A spark. A breath. A tiny, foolish heartbeat of relief. Then I continued, my voice low enough to freeze blood. "I'm ending you." Mark's eyes widened. His breath stopped. The world between us shifted. And he finally understood. This wasn't a breakup. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't even revenge. This was a reckoning. And he was the one trembling on the edge of it. The moment I told him the truth, "I'm ending you," the air between us shifted so violently it felt like the room itself stopped breathing. Mark stared at me, eyes wide, chest rising too fast, shock pulsing through him in waves. That tiny flicker of hope he dared to feel? Dead. Snuffed out. Buried. And he knew it. "Emily," he whispered, voice cracking. "You don't mean that." "Oh, I do," I murmured, stepping closer until our bodies almost touched. "More than anything I've ever meant in my life." He swallowed hard, but he didn't move away. Fear had glued him to the chair. What are you planning to do?" he asked, trying to mask terror with a thin layer of calm. "The recording? The footage? You think you can just—" "I don't think," I cut in sharply. "I know." His lips parted, but I didn't let him speak. I slowly reached into my dress pocket and pulled out my phone. His eyes locked onto it instantly. The color drained from his face. "You didn't," he whispered. "I did," I said, tapping the screen. "And I sent everything to 3 different places. Cloud storage. A locked drive. And," I paused for effect, "one specific person who would love to see what you've become." His heartbeat stuttered. "Emily, who?" he demanded. I smiled. "Slow. Lethal. Her husband." Mark's face collapsed. His mouth opened, but the words came out broken. "Emily. Jesus, you don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," I said, stepping closer until my breath touched his cheek. "I'm giving people the truth. The truth you tried to bury with sleeping pills and lies." He flinched at the word pills. Good. He should. He should relive that moment every second for the rest of his life. "What do you want?" he whispered, voice trembling, a mix of fear and fragile desperation. "There has to be something you need from me. Something I can fix." "You can't fix anything," I said. "You lost your chance the moment you stood over me and thought drugging me was easier than talking to me." His jaw clenched. His hands shook. And then, he snapped. Not violently. Not loudly. But something in him cracked, quietly, like a bone breaking under too much weight. He stood up suddenly, gripping the back of the chair like he needed support just to stay upright. "I made a mistake," he said, voice trembling. "A horrible mistake. But I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't want." "You didn't want me to wake up," I snapped. He froze. "You didn't want me to ask questions. You didn't want me to hear her voice. You didn't want me to see you with her in my own damn house." He pressed his hands to his face. "I panicked," he said. "I knew you'd never forgive me. I knew you'd leave. I didn't want that." I stepped even closer, letting every inch of my presence crush him. "You should have thought of that," I whispered, "before you let another woman sneak into our bedroom." He let out a sound, part cry, part groan. Then he reached for my hand. But I pulled it away before he even touched me. That tiny rejection shattered something in him. "I'm begging you," he whispered. "Please, don't ruin my life." I stared at him, letting silence press into his skin. Then I said the coldest words I've ever spoken in my life. "You ruined mine first." He blinked rapidly, panic rising like a storm. "Emily, what are you going to do?" I tilted my head. Then smiled, slow, controlled, terrifying. "Tell you the truth." He frowned. Confused. "The truth?" he repeated. I nodded. "You think that recording is the worst thing I have on you." His lips parted. "But it isn't." He stared at me, eyes narrowing slightly. "What are you talking about?" he asked. I walked to the bookshelf, slid my hand behind the spine of a thick novel, and pulled out a small black notebook. His notebook. His handwriting. His secrets. His sins. He froze. "You went through my things?" he whispered. "You hid things," I replied calmly. "I just found them." I opened the notebook slowly, deliberately, letting each page turn with a soft rustle that made his breath catch. "You shouldn't leave evidence of your little business deals lying around," I said, tapping a page. "Especially the kind that could put you in prison." His face twisted. "Emily, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said. "You weren't just cheating. You weren't just drugging me. You were planning to drain our joint account dry and disappear." His expression shattered into sheer panic. "How did you?" "I wasn't sleeping the night you whispered on the phone," I said, lifting my gaze to his. "The night you told someone, once she's out of the picture, I'll have the funds." His body shook. He looked seconds away from collapsing. "You don't know who you're messing with," he whispered, voice low, trembling with fear and something darker. I smirked. "No, Mark," I said softly. "You don't know who you tried to mess with." He stared at me. Silent. Terrified. And then I delivered the final blow, the one that made everything inside him crumble. "You're done. With me. With your mistress. With your secret deals. With your lies. Everything ends tonight." He took a step back. Another. His back hit the wall. "Emily, please." "I'll do anything," he choked out. "Just don't release anything. Don't ruin me." I stepped toward him, slow, controlled, unshakable. "You already ruined yourself," I said. Then I leaned in, my lips brushing his ear, my voice soft enough to break a soul. "And tomorrow morning, the world will finally know." His breath stopped. His entire body froze. And for the first time since the night he betrayed me, Mark understood. I wasn't his victim. I was his reckoning. His ending. His final mercy. And his worst nightmare.